Sister just declined her boyfriend's marriage proposal because he wanted her to stop being my caretaker because I am disabled. But I begged her to choose him. I'm a disabled 21-year-old boy who lives with my 27-year-old sister. I've been a paraplegic since I was a toddler due to an accident. Our surviving parent, our father, is older and ailing. He lives in an old people's home, and my sister takes me to see him on a regular basis. My sister is my full-time caregiver. She has her own job and helps to support both of us. When she isn't working, she usually looks after me. She has a committed boyfriend of 9 years. They'd been in a relationship since she was 18, as far as the relationship has always been really serious. He's a wonderful man who has always been polite to me. He is also willing to offer financial support on occasion. I know my sister has always wanted to be married. We've talked about it a lot since we were kids. We had mock weddings, and she was constantly thinking about the day she would marry. Spend hours browsing at wedding attire. Even as an adult, he fantasized about getting married and spent a lot of time shopping for bridal gowns, discussing her ideal wedding and the style of home she'd prefer. She chose names for the children as a child and has never changed them, so she's had a long-standing desire to marry and have children. Her current partner has been with her for a long time and has been so nice to her that I figured he would always be the one to marry her, and I'd be happy for her. Finally, she'd have someone to look after her instead of having to continually rely on me. So everything came crumbling down. She came home one day, a total disaster, screaming and bleeding her tears all over the place. She informed me that they had broken up and that it was over. It was heartbreaking to see her so upset. It was like a knife in my heart to see her cry and be sad like that, and I felt absolutely helpless because all I could offer were meaningless words. She wouldn't tell me why, and I believed she just didn't want to discuss it. After a few days, she still refused to talk about it, and she was devastated, sobbing profusely. I told her I was her brother. I was physically crippled, but my heart and mind were fully functional, and she could talk to me about anything. She eventually opened up about it, but only after much probing. She informed me that her boyfriend had proposed to her. I told her that was fantastic. Why had they broken up? She had always wanted to be married and had been waiting for years. She told me they had discussed it, and her boyfriend wanted her to move in with him. They would find someone to look after me individually. They would continue to see me on occasion, but I would not pay them visits, and my sister would no longer be my primary caregiver. My sister refused to take it, despite the fact that it was the offer her boyfriend wanted. She refused to accept it, and they were unable to reconcile their different desires, so they separated. I told her she was insane. She should have chosen her lover since I knew she loved him, and he was crazy about her. She should have married. She does not need to be bound to me indefinitely. She should live her own life and raise her own family. She was still crying hard, and she told me she knew she would never be able to get it. All of her childhood ambitions of becoming a bride, getting married, and beginning a family would be dashed since she would have to care for me for the rest of her life. I insisted on telling her she didn't have to take care of me forever and that she should have her own life. She answered no because that's what she wanted and how things had to be. She wouldn't want it any other way. When I insisted, she said no. That's it, she is in charge. She makes her own choices in life, and I should stop telling her how to live it. She became angry with me, so I quickly apologized. She maintained it was okay, but I could tell she was dissatisfied and had a bad attitude. Why is she doing this to herself? I do not understand. Doesn't she realize I don't want her to sacrifice herself in this way? Why did she suddenly abandon her 9-year-old boyfriend? She loved him, and he loved her, so why did she push him away? Why does she do so much harm to herself? I don't want her hurting herself for my sake. I never asked her to make such a sacrifice for herself. I told her I didn't mind having another caretaker for me, but she said no. It has to be her. It's her job. It's her commitment to me and our family, and she has to look after me at all times. She wouldn't have it in any other way, regardless of what I said. I truly loathe myself right now. I've never disliked being disabled as much as I do now. I feel like a baby, a useless creature. I feel like a ball and chain. It was like a burden, holding her down to the earth and preventing her from living her own life. I just want her to be happy, enjoy her life, and look lovely on her wedding day, as she has always desired, rather than being stuck caring for her disabled brother. I wish I could simply die to lessen her load. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't pondered suicide so she could finally live her own life. I am not just saying this, I mean it. I know she'd mourn me for months, if not years. But after that, she would marry and enjoy the life she had always wanted. It may be the only time she ever feels truly happy. I tried to encourage her, but she seems determined to become bogged down like Wei. I do not understand. She is not being sensible, nor is she looking out for her own best interests. Why is she doing this? How can I persuade her to prioritize herself and her life? Please help me out. How can I encourage her to think rationally? How can I encourage her to put her needs ahead of mine and focus on her life so she may live the life she's always wanted instead of being bound to me? How can I convince her of this? Please help, I'm desperate and heartbroken for her. Comment where the OP has reacted. We have underlined the word caught. Can you contact a social worker to act as an intermediary between the two of you, so you may obtain the care you require while keeping a relationship with her, as if she were a sister rather than a caregiver? There are numerous choices. I discussed it with her and told her that I could easily find programs that would provide a caregiver, albeit at a higher expense, so that my sister wouldn't have to be my caretaker and could go live her own life. She wasn't interested. She is incredibly persistent and tenacious. She seemed to believe that she must be my lifelong caregiver. I am not sure why. Okay, this is an addendum to my last post from 2 nights ago. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left such lovely and emotional comments. It was absolutely amazing of you. Thank you very much. I'm also feeling much better today. I have a better understanding of the situation and have discussed it with my sister. I appear to have been perplexed, and there was a lot of miscommunication in the heat of the moment. I reviewed everything with my sister, and we're both feeling much better and brighter today, agreeing that everything may have worked out for the best. My sister recounted it to me, and I recognized he was not the appropriate person for her, despite the fact that they had been together for a long period. I believe the duration of their relationship had given me a misleading impression. As my sister clarified, it appears he did not say I couldn't visit at all, as I had imagined, but rather that I couldn't visit whenever I pleased. They would set times and timetables for my visits so that I didn't constantly disrupt and interfere with their lives. However, it appears that my sister did not enjoy it at all. She indicated that she understood her boyfriend had a problem with me and wanted to put some distance between her and me, which she was not comfortable with. I told her I think she loved him, and she agreed, but she knows her priorities in life, and she is old and sophisticated enough to understand what she wants from life and what her priorities are. I told her that I thought she'd always wanted to marry, have children, and have a family since she was a child. She told me that she still does, but only under certain conditions. She remarked that she was a different person when she was younger, and that as she has gotten older, her values and priorities have evolved. She added that if she marries, it will be a package deal, with me joining the family. I would have to move in with them and become a full-time member of their family. She stated that if any future husband refused to accept it, he could get stuffed, and she did not want him. That's basically how she feels about her ex-boyfriend, and she said she is much more positive about her future, now that he is gone. She admitted that when she was with him, she was continually concerned about the future for herself and me. But now that she's made her decision, she's determined to never let me go. I asked her whether this meant she'd never marry. What if it means she never meets a guy who is okay with all of this and wants to settle down with her while I am still involved? She responded, if that's the case, so be it. As she stated, I am now her family. I exist, and I am the most important thing to her. She will not give up me for a possible spouse and children who do not yet exist but may do in the future. She indicated that my health and well-being will always be her #1 priority, regardless of my disability. She could scarcely imagine her life without it. I told her, but didn't she feel that she was severely limiting herself by chaining herself to me? Didn't she feel as if her life options and potential were considerably limited? She stated that her time with me and taking care of me had influenced her identity. Taking care of me has become a part of her personality and character. It is one of the goals she aspires for. I thought it was fantastic, but she said she couldn't have it any other way. She replied that I give her nearly as much as she does for me, if not more. I told her she was exaggerating, but she said it was entirely true. She went on to say that merely looking after and caring for me on a daily basis brings her so much joy and satisfaction that she can't imagine how she could ever live without it, and that it is far more important to her than the prospect of having a spouse or children. I had problems wrapping my head around that. I joked that it can't always be that much fun, especially when she's cleaning feces off my ass or whatever. She merely smiled and explained how everything that appears unpleasant, ugly, or painful on the surface may actually be beautiful and cherished when viewed through the lens of love. She used the analogy of a mother giving birth. After 9 months of illness and a swollen body, she had her body ripped open, blood everywhere, screaming and sobbing, and the worst physical pain she'd ever experienced. But in the end, it's still beautiful because it's an act of love, and she goes through all of that pain only to bring someone into the world who she will love forever. So yes, even acts like cleaning excrement from my ass, as filthy and revolting as they may appear to some, is an act of love in and of itself, revealing how much she values me as a brother and how far she will go to maintain that bond. And that, I believe, is beautiful and true love. So I have a whole new view on her and our life. It is much more positive, and I no longer see myself as a burden or a chain. She helped me see my own worth and importance. I'm not just a handicapped man in a wheelchair who need assistance. I'm a brother, and I give love, companionship, and value to this wonderful, beautiful, kind-hearted woman whom I am delighted to call my sister. I no longer consider ending my life because I understand how much I am worth and how important I am to her, and how much it would hurt her if I did, and I could never bear doing so. I just wanted to share that update with you all because all of your very warm and compassionate reactions have been very encouraging. I can honestly say that, despite my physical condition, I consider myself to be blessed with love, which is the most wonderful thing in the world. I can't picture living without it. Thank you all very much. Next story, boyfriend's female employer used to be his roommate, and everyone assumed they got together. Now she's attempting to take him across the country against his will. Hello everyone. My partner Lee and I have been dating for 2 years. We have lived together for 1 year. Before we moved in together, he lived with a friend from work, Kim. We were only a month or 2 into our relationship. Many of his co-workers contacted me and informed me of Lee and Kim's regular hookups. This, of course, made me uncomfortable. Instead of acting like an adult and talking about it with him, I got drunk one night and had a breakdown. Not my best moment, and I've apologized to him and Kim for my conduct. Lee informed me that nothing had happened between them and that everything was a workplace rumor. I completely trust him, and even if he did sleep with her in the past, he is now entirely committed to me. After we moved in together, his interactions with Kim were limited to the office and the occasional meeting with common associates. Unfortunately, Kim was less forgiving of my juvenile behavior. I didn't have the breakdown in front of Kim, but Lee mentioned it for some reason. I wasn't happy about it, so I tried to take Kim out for lunch and drinks and apologize. I assumed everything was great, but it was plainly not. Kim has treated me brutally for the last 2 years. If we go out to dine together, she ignores me. When I start chatting, she rolls her eyes and cuts in front of me, as if I don't exist. Whatever. I received it. I try to be friendly, but I am not her biggest admirer. What has genuinely caught my curiosity is Kim's position above Lee in management and in charge of expansion. She has approached Lee several times about establishing a new branch of the company in a location 3 hours away from our home. To open a new branch for this company, the individual must first live in the new city for at least 2 years. She has entered Lee's name into the running, despite the fact that he has declared categorically that he does not wish to attend. I'm outraged, and he is too. But he doesn't perceive that as a judgment of me, rather. She wants someone experienced to establish the new branch, and he has the most experience in the organization doing it, so that could be the case. But I'm not certain. I suppose there is another function as well. Even after all of this, Lee wants me to make an effort to befriend her. I informed him that a friendship between us is simply not in the cards. I've tried everything to make her like me, including throwing her surprise birthday parties, relocating her into a new apartment while she was in her home state for an emergency, and even paying for a tour of her favorite distillery, but it hasn't worked. I'm done trying. I've told him that I don't want him to terminate his friendship with her, but that he should not discuss our relationship with her, and that I'd prefer not be in a room with her / have dinner with her, unless there isn't a large crowd, where I can pretend she's not there. I can deal with her for birthday and holiday gatherings, but otherwise I do not want to be around her. He's clearly hurt that we don't get along, and he's continually attempting to persuade me to be her friend. Apparently, he still believes she needs more time to get to know me and appreciate how sorry I was for a mistake I made 2 years ago and have worked so hard to correct. So my question is, how can I persuade Lee that Kim and I will never be friends and that I simply do not want to be around her if I can avoid it? Comment where LP has responded, Scooter McGooder, how severe was the blowout? Were you yelling? Throwing things? Hitting? That could explain why she is so chilly towards you. Okay, not terrible. I became enraged and screamed at him, but she wasn't home. I didn't throw anything or hit anybody. Lots of drunken crying and yelling. So it wasn't that popular. And I didn't comment on the thread, but I did read all of the responses. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to respond and provide assistance, as well as those who DM'd me and helped me solve the situation. So to begin, I asked Lee if he had slept with her. He stated, once again, that it had never happened and that he had no reason to conceal it if it had. I asked him whether Kim had a thing for him that he wasn't aware of, and he thought about it and determined it might be true. I stated why I didn't want to be her friend and how much I detested the way she treated me. He didn't realize how bad it was, so I pushed him to make a concerted effort to be more mindful while we were together. He's quite aloof about a lot of things, which makes me glad I took the initiative in our relationship. So, after a week, 2 of his co-workers invite him out to dinner. We agree, and when we come, Kim is there. She hugged Lee and then ignored me. I figured Lee had missed it until he looked at me and raised his eyebrows. Dinner continues, and Kim either ignores me, rolls her eyes, or interrupts me. When she walked to the bathroom, Lee turned to me and said, "I definitely see it, and I'm sorry, that was great to hear." As dinner was about to end, one of Lee's co-workers stood up to make a toast. He goes on and on about Lee's hard work and how they would miss him when he transfers to the new branch. I was taken aback, so I simply asked, "What?" Without realizing it, I stated it aloud. Lee was likewise astonished, informing them that he had not accepted and did not want the job. That's when Kim stated he was one of the top 3 candidates to be eliminated. Lee was pissed. He stood up to get another drink and I joined him. When he realized that Kim had entered his name in the running, he went to the upper management and informed that it was an error and that he was not interested. That means Kim must have discovered out and persuaded the bosses to reinstate his name in the contest. We ended up leaving early to head home. I told him I'd support him if he wanted to go, but he's absolutely against it. He now knows why I didn't want to be friends with her and why my suspicions about her were completely accurate. He returned to work on Monday and asked to be reassigned to a new department that is not under Kim's control. He contacted HR about Kim's overstepping her limits, and he is considering finding a new employment where he will not have to interact with her. I'm relieved he finally acknowledged what I saw and is finished with Kim. I'm looking forward to seeing how losing her will enhance our relationship in the future, and he vows to be more conscious of how his friends treat me and to respect my wishes, rather than imposing a friendship on me if I don't want it. Comments in which OP has responded sad, dissatisfied, and confused 11. Now that your partner has regained entire control over her, you must take precautions to keep yourself safe in case she reacts aggressively. Make sure to lock down your social media accounts and block her everywhere so she doesn't know what you're up to. Check the locks on your doors and consider installing security cameras in case she goes crazy. She knows where you live. If she is his manager, she has access to much of your husband's personal information, including his date of birth and possibly his social security number. Keep track of all your accounts and make sure she doesn't use that information to put him at risk of identity fraud. It's wonderful that your spouse spoke with HR. Hopefully, she won't cause too much trouble at work. He must, however, exercise caution and avoid being alone with her in case she accuses him of something. I realize I appear concerned, but considering her level of crazy, it's better to be safe than sorry. Oop, I hadn't considered the possibility that she will go postal. But you're correct, we should be vigilant and prepared for everything just in case. I might ask for security cameras that we can take with us because we want to relocate in a few months. I will surely advise him to keep a check on his personal stuff and to contact HR if he notices any changes in her behavior at work. Pan and Anna, they're former housemates, and she's his boss. Were they roommates or co-workers initially? Oop, they joined the company simultaneously and became co-workers.